Breaking news on NFL trade deadline day. The Commanders are sending pass rusher Montez Sweat to the Bears, our insider Jonathan Jones reports. Washington is reportedly receiving a second-round pick in next year's draft in exchange. You'll remember this is the second year in a row now with a deadline deal for the Bears. Last year, they sent a second-rounder to the Steelers for the wide receiver Chase Claypool. So you take a look, it's an easy swap here to be able to remember. It's Montez Sweat to Chicago, the 2024 second-round pick to Washington as trade deadline day kicks off and 4 p.m. Eastern quickly approaches. Of course, our NFL insider, Jonathan Jones, is on top of every single move going on there out in the league. And, JJ, you have this deal right here, Montez Sweat leaving Washington. What can you tell us about this deal?
So Chicago very aggressive here, and I know that they are a team that they don't have many wins. They don't care. They know that they need a pass rusher, and this is something that has been an issue for the Chicago Bears that they've known about going back to the offseason. And remember, they added Yannick Ngakoue there back, I think, in training camp, but they are not getting the production from their pass rushers that they want to. Enter Montez Sweat, who's having so far one of the best seasons of his young career, 6.5 sacks. He has I think the second best pressure rate he's ever had in his career. He's getting off the ball as quickly as he ever has, and he's in line for a contract extension. And so the Bears, they had to outbid teams, and I would say the Atlanta Falcons would probably be the top team there who was in the market for Montez Sweat, specifically the Stone Mountain, Georgia native. And so they had to go and give a second-round draft pick in order to get him. Right now, that is a very high pick. That's, you know, I think mid-30s, maybe 35, 36 for the Chicago Bears. Obviously, anytime you make a deal like this, when you become buyers at the trade deadline, you are anticipating that that player is going to make you better, and thus that draft pick is going to be pushed down a little bit. So whatever that pick is today, the Bears are banking on the fact that, or the hope, rather, not the fact, but the hope that it will continue to go down in the second round. Of course, that's what they did with Chase Claypool last season, and it became a very high second-round draft pick. So the only other thing that I'll mention about this trade compensation, Zach, is that the Bears may still not be done. Jalen Johnson, the corner, they could wind up trading him. San Francisco is a team to certainly watch out for right there. And so if they were to trade him and get back a second or third rounder, maybe that makes this a little equal.
Do you see a chance in the future now that Chicago will extend and sign Sweat to a long-term deal?
Yeah, great question. I mean, you have to, right? But here's what happens when you're an NFL team and you do that. When you go out and you spend significant draft pick compensation and capital for a player like that, he knows now that you have to pay him. And so right now, you would hope that maybe there is a deal in place for the Chicago Bears and Montez Sweat to pay him right now, or they obviously have the franchise tag at their disposal, something that they would be comfortable with using if they need to, if they do not reach that long-term contract extension. Interestingly enough, yesterday we saw Rashawn Gary with the Green Bay Packers sign an extension. That's because the Packers didn't want to get into free agency and have to use the franchise tag. And so before the Montez Sweats of the world or a Danielle Hunter or Josh Allen wound up getting traded, they locked him into a 4-year, $96 million deal. So would Montez Sweat agree to something that would be averaging mid-20s in terms of average annual value? Perhaps. I don't know the answer to that question, but the Bears are putting themselves in a position by virtue of what they gave up for him that they are going to have to pay him at some point. That's either now or franchise tag and something else later.
The two names on the Commanders roster that we were looking at mainly when it came to the trade deadline coming up was Montez Sweat and Chase Young. Sweat's on the way out. What's next for Chase Young?
So I'm told that Chase Young is not for certain going to continue to be a Washington Commander. It may happen. He may not get dealt, but he also may get dealt. This was not necessarily an either-or situation for the Commanders. Okay, deal Montez Sweat and Chase Young stays, or deal Chase Young and Montez Sweat stays. And so the Commanders would be very wise, and I believe that they are, continuing to listen to other teams for the next 4 hours or so to see what of value they could potentially get for Chase Young, who right now is having somewhat of a down season. There may be some medical questions about him, et cetera, but you know, he is a local guy from that area. He is one of the faces of the franchise. I do believe the Commanders would be comfortable moving forward with him and figuring out in the offseason what to do if there is a new regime in place there overseeing football operations, as many expect, following this season. So it is not for certain, now that Montez Sweat has been dealt to the Chicago Bears, that Chase Young will remain with the Commanders. There's still some time before all of that gets figured out.
Is there anything else you're hearing, rumblings around the league as we approach that under 4-hour mark towards the deadline?
Yeah, so plenty more out there. Again, we mentioned the Chicago Bears and potentially moving Jalen Johnson. Again, keep a close eye on the San Francisco 49ers there. Certainly in need of both pass rush and defensive back help, specifically at corner. You look at the Philadelphia Eagles, a team that is always aggressive around the trade deadline. Just went out and got Kevin Byard last week. They may go out and get a corner here in the next couple of hours. You can always look at the Buffalo Bills, the Detroit Lions, the Baltimore Ravens, the Jacksonville Jaguars as buyers. And then, again, we're all kind of keeping a close watch on what happens with Jerry Jeudy in Denver. And if he winds up getting dealt, I'm told it's mostly quiet in Carolina right now. But just because it's quiet, Zach, right now, when you and I are speaking, does not at all mean that whenever I am off this screen, it doesn't heat up.
Yeah, I'll take anything that could make the Panthers better, just speaking for my own fandom's sake. So whatever happens, happens, and I'll be with it. Jonathan Jones, as we get closer to that trade deadline, thank you so much.